Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Aretha and that is from Aretha's Gym and Tonic. So I am a fitness enthusiast who lost approximately over between 70 to 80 kg over the course of my lifetime. And so over here we will be talking weight loss tips, fitness tips, working out, life in general. I'm a 41-year-old woman with a child and husband. So we will be talking lifestyle, we'll be talking events and current affairs. Today, I want to talk to you, if you will allow me, to just fan out a little bit over Destiny's Child, Beyoncé, and just the Knowles family. So, and I'll tell you why I started doing that. So, I recently downloaded the audiobook, The Matriarch, and that is by none other than Ms. Tina Knowles. And I have to say, so Beyoncé is in my age group, and so it very much felt like I came up. I remember when Destiny's Child came out, and any of you in that age range will do. And I remember from the minute they came out down to their name, the fact that they were called Destiny's Child, I was like, oh my God, who are these ladies? I wanted to know instantly. And then I saw their video, Bugaboo. I think No No No. I can't remember which came first. I feel like No 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 was the first video I heard. I was like, these girls are serving face, they're serving voice, they're serving body, and they are black. I was like, oh my God, these girls are for us. Anyway, what does that have to do with Miss Tina Knowles' book? Now, if you are a Beyoncé fan, and I'm like a OG Destiny's Child fan, and this is because I grew up with them. Now I'm at the point where, am I always able to go to the concert? Not so much anymore, but I love Beyonce's work ethic. And for me, the reason I cannot recommend this book enough, The Matriarch, is because I've always been fascinated. I think when you look at someone and you think, God, this person is brilliant, her attention to detail, her dedication to her craft is second to none. And this is Beyonce I'm talking about. I often want to know more about the person because I want to know, where do you come from? Where does that kind of drive, determination, hunger come from? And so I always think, look to the parents. Now, I feel like this book, can't recommend it enough because you really get to understand the backstory. In this current day time, it's very easy to think, oh gosh, Beyonce's a superstar. She's a mega star. Like, she is probably one of the biggest stars, possibly the biggest star of current day. And when you think about how long this woman has been working, so I know they started their band Girl Time from 7 years old, but ultimately when she really kind of came onto the scene, let's say about 14, 15 with No No No. So from 14, 15 solidly to the age of 44, that's nothing to be sniffed at. Do you know how short the average attention span is these days? Incredibly short. So anyway, back to the book. Why is it important? Because in order to understand who Beyoncé is, you need to understand where she comes from. And Ms. Tina Knowles gives you everything. She gives you everything from her upbringing, where she came from, why she's the way she is. And she touches very much on colorism, family life, how her parents grew up, who her father was, who her mother was, her siblings, and where she was. She was the last of, I want to say, 4 or 5 children. There were quite a lot of children and mixed marriages. The reason I cannot recommend this book enough is because one thing I've always felt about Beyoncé and her family, it always feels like they're, I don't want to say secretive, but private, which is understandably so, because who wants to be chatting their business to everyone? But they've always come off as an incredibly private family. Now, let me tell you something. I don't know what it is about women, but as we get older, as we come into ourselves and as we evolve, there is so much power in speaking your truth and speaking your story. And that is exactly what Ms. Knowles has done. I love a little bit of tea, but there's nothing better than getting tea direct from the horse's mouth because there's no room for misinterpretation. Everything that I've always wondered, how does Kelly fold into their lifestyle? How does she come about? How is she living with them? Where's her mum? Where's her family? What's her backstory? Obviously, Miss Tina Knowles was very respectful, but she kind of explains the whole journey of how Kelly Rowland came to start sort of like living with them and how she was incorporated into the family. They touch on everything. You know, she touches on everything. Like I said, in order to understand who Beyoncé is, you need to understand who her mum is. And if we all love Beyoncé, let me tell you, after listening to that book, I am like, literally, Beyoncé is just the embodiment of her mum. Like, she literally, it almost sounds like you can hear that, like, oh, okay, I don't want to say so much as a clone because they're quite different. even down to musical influence. You know, Miss Tina Knowles talks about her growing up and being in a girl group and starting something and how it goes. Let me tell you what I love about the book. It very much touches on legacy, okay? So sometimes you will start something and your children will finish it, and you think to yourself, oh God, you know, maybe it was wasted, or I didn't quite fulfill my full potential. But what you realize is, like, we are all here on a journey, and maybe you started, and think of it as a relay race. That's very much how I took this book, that Miss Tina Knowles's mother started, and it makes sense why it's called the matriarch. Her mother kind of started the journey, and then she takes you on her own journey, and then you see it with Beyoncé, and it's going to be amazing to watch how it evolves with Blue Ivy and her siblings. Absolutely phenomenal. So she starts us in Galveston, which is where she's grown up, her lifestyle. And what's amazing is Miss Tina Knowles, when she was younger, was a very stunning, striking woman. But what's always stuck out to me about her that I've absolutely loved, and even about Beyoncé, you can see that transferred, is she never led with her physicality. And whilst, yes, you understood that the girls were absolutely stunning, they were striking, and in their outfits, they were sexy, beautiful, but the work ethic always overtook and completely overshadowed how beautiful they were. And that to me is what made them stand out to me. That's what I absolutely love. Is there every single album? Is there every single single that I like? No, but most of them I like. You'll be hard pressed to find a Destiny's Child or a Beyoncé song that I don't like. But what I love most is the work ethic. So as I was saying, Miss Tina takes you from her early days in Galveston, and to how she kind of then migrates to Houston, and how she has to look after her parents, and basically how the teachers or nuns, because she went to a Catholic school, and how the nuns kind of said to her, well, you think you are a cut above. And it's amazing how people will project their insecurities on you. So obviously this nun, this is me reading in between the lines, thought this is a strikingly beautiful young girl, and she was quite bolshy. She was quite she seemed like quite a character as a young child, that she had a strong character and she was bolshy. What I get from her is I can see that Solange personality in her. I feel like even though Beyoncé seems to have her work ethic and her mindset, her dedication to excellence, but in terms of her outward personality, I get that there's probably a lot more similarities between Miss Knowles, Solange. So this nun obviously sees her, and because she finds her probably a bit mouthy, a bit outgoing, she says to her, oh, you probably need to be cut down, and kind of insinuates that, oh, you think you're so good looking, but you're not. And she said from that moment, and I think she was about 3, well, I don't know how old she was, but she could have been, I don't know, 7 or 8, but it was somewhere under 10. She said from that moment, because that woman had insinuated that, she said she was never going to rely on her looks. And I just think that's so important, because what it touched on to me is, as an adult, sometimes you will speak life or death into your children. You know, the power is in the tongue. So when so many people go out and say that, not even to your kids, if you are a teacher, if you are in any way responsible for imparting wisdom on kids, I think it's really beholden on us. You know, this is a reminder for everyone to understand the impact of your words to a child. You may speak to another adult and they may think, oh, be quiet, shut up. But to a child, there's power in your words, there's impact in it. So it's really important to make sure you lead with compassion, you lead with intent, and you lead with kindness if you can. So like I said, she touches on that. She touches on growing up and you know, not necessarily finding her place in the world, and how she felt about her body. She goes through all the, you know, regular kind of insecurities. I have to say the book was a slow burn. It took me a while to kind of get into it. I didn't really start getting into it up until about chapter 15. But then she also then talks about her relationship with Mr. Knowles, and how she met him and how they started going. And the beauty about him is, what you get to see is, you get to see his boldness, his brilliance, and you get to see how that translates to catapulting Beyoncé to success and fame. Why is it important? You know what I realized from people, nothing is ever by accident. You don't, I mean, we probably already knew this, but you do not stumble upon that level of fame, that level of brilliance, that level of success by accident. Okay, and what do I mean? And I hate that people do this, but it's not a comparison, but I couldn't help but think, the person that Beyoncé is, the star that Beyoncé is, one thing I will say that is pointed out from the book is, very early on, Beyoncé identified, Ms. Knowles identified, Tina Knowles identified that Beyonce already knew what her destiny was. Now that is amazing, because I think there are very few people that are fortunate enough to know from day dot, this is what I'm born to do, this is who I'm supposed to be. But her daughter knew that from very early on. She talks about, who Beyonce was. Another thing that she talks about, because I've often heard people say, and I don't like people talking about, and I think we all know, like in a negative way, there's been lots of speculation about Sir Carter, Beyonce's son, and Rumi, and why is he always protected? What's going on? We've never heard him speak. We've never seen him, yada, yada, yada. She talks about basically a teacher trying to categorize Beyonce as slow, and how Beyonce was incredibly quiet and she didn't have friends. She didn't find it easy. Now, I don't know, I've watched a few things on TikTok where people have suggested, oh, Beyonce may be on the spectrum and maybe that's what's happening with her kids. Now, if there is ever a way, I don't know if it's true or not, but if there is ever a way to confirm to me that autism to me is almost like a superpower, a special power, when you tap into it and understand. The reason I wouldn't find it surprising if Beyonce was is because I often find that people that are on the spectrum tend to be absolutely brilliant in one way, and that is possibly because maybe they obsess over something, they have photographic memories. And to be fair, I think we are all on a spectrum, but it's just different degrees. So she kind of alludes to how this was picked upon when she was 4, and she noticed that she wasn't much of a talker. Now this is kind of transferred into Beyonce's older life, because once Beyonce got with Jay-Z as well, she kind of just she stopped doing interviews. And what I love about Beyonce, what I've always known, is she is born to be a performer, and it's almost like she doesn't want to do anything else. She doesn't want to do the touring. She doesn't want to not touring, she doesn't want to do like the publicity touring aspect of it. She doesn't want to do the talking. She literally wants to live her life, come to work, perform, give her all to her fans, and then go about her business. I absolutely love that, in a day and age where everyone wants celebrity, everyone wants to be talked about, everyone wants to be looked at. It's so refreshing to see someone who just wants to focus on their art. It's so rare, and I absolutely love that. So anyway, she talks about all of this. Like I said, she talks about meeting Matthew Knowles. She talks about the nature of their relationship. Now, let me tell you what gripped me, what had me in a chokehold, the level of honesty and vulnerability with which she talks about marriage, the intricacies of marriage, the ebbs and flows, the one day we are solid as a rock, and the next day, actually, this isn't working, we need to get a divorce. Now, I think if you speak to any couples that have been married for over 10 years or 15 years, they will probably tell you we've been through some things. And she talks about it. She talks about it all. She talks about the affairs, when it started, and the things that kind of bothered her about the relationship, the nature of the relationship with Matthew Knowles. Like, literally, there was infidelity from the age of 3. Let me tell you what I got from their relationship, that these people were phenomenal as a team. Matthew and Tina were solid as a rock when it came to their daughters. They were great as a team, rock solid, knew exactly what they wanted for their daughters' lives, and they were laser focused. But when it comes to them in a relationship, not so much. So where they struggled, I don't want to say failed, because can you fail? I think every relationship, every situation, you learn so much, and you gave birth to 2 beautiful daughters. Even the way she talks about it, the beauty and the complexity of marriage with such grace. When she talks about everyone in their journey, she's so compassionate. You can tell that she's trying to be as balanced as possible. She talks about everything about accepting Kelly into the fold, and how Beyonce felt once Kelly started referring to Matthew Knowles as her dad, and Beyonce wasn't very comfortable with it. And then talking about Solange maybe feeling a little bit overshadowed and kind of her nose put out of joint as Beyonce rose to prominence. The amount of just kind of like abuse, pushback, I don't want to say abuse, but a lot of pushback from the industry on their looks. And the crazy thing to me is, listen, I promise you, and I was thinking, then again, the industry probably doesn't look to people like me as the primary candidate, and it looks like they're publicizing and trying to reach a white audience. And so, but I loved everything about Destiny's Child. I love their outfits, I love their hair. But she talks about in the book about how they thought their hair was too big, it was too Motown. And I was thinking, and you've got to bear in mind, we're talking like the 90s and early 2000s, okay? Their look was fire. They were very on trend for the time. These were, like I said, serving body, serving face and vocals. I'm just like, that's rare. Very few bands hit the trifecta. And they did. And then they could move as well. They could dance. I was just like, no. This is what girl bands should aspire to be. And that's what they actually did. They executed it beautifully. She talks about their struggles. What I love about the book, and the reason I cannot recommend it enough, it really humanizes them. Beyonce is this mega star. She's amazing. She's out there. You look at the Renaissance tour and the crowd that she draws in. But when you look at where she started, there has never been, well, I'm sure there is, there's never been, in my opinion, a more inspiring story, because the pushback, the things they said they got rejected at, the hurdles that they had to face, when the band split up, people's perception of the Knowleses and were they being kind of like pushy showbiz parents, were they, you know, all those kind of things very much come into play and make you think. And I remember it at the time, maybe because we were going through it and we did all kind of think, oh yeah, she's the lead singer because obviously she's their daughter. And I remember I did actually think that. But then when you listen to the book and she talks about how much conviction and how confident and how much time and dedication and effort Beyonce put into her craft, there was no choice but for her to be the leader. And that only becomes clear when you get the book. She talks about Parkwood. So when you see things like, you know, Parkwood Entertainment or Parkwood Media, these are all parts of Beyonce's lifestyle. That growing up, she talks about was it Headline? I think it was Headline, that the hairdressing company that she owned. And she talks about, and this is when I talk about the complexities of relationships, she talks about Matthew Knowles being a visionary, basically. He was a fearless visionary who at one point was earning an amazing salary, and they were a very middle-class family from Houston, earning a good wage. But once he began to see talent, focus, and possibilities with the girl group, he quit his life. Now, I'm thinking to myself, what does that mean? What does that look like today? And do you know how dedicated and focused your child has to be? But also the level of pressure that then comes on the entire family when you say, I'm going to give up, I don't know what he was earning, but I'm going to give up my salary, give up my livelihood to focus on these girls, to take a chance. When you sew everything together, you cannot help but think, you know what, you deserve every single ounce of success, glory, and praise that you have, because you're phenomenal. You worked hard. And to a certain extent, some people may say, well, yeah, you know, you're biased, you're going to show yourself in the best possible light. Possibly, I don't know. But I think she spoke a lot about things that she considered failures. Like, it's very open, it's very vulnerable, it's very raw, it's very honest. I think she always led with compassion. She doesn't speak negatively about anyone in the book. She also talks about, it's amazing when they talk about the racism that they'd faced as well at different points of their life. Like when she was growing up, you know, Miss Knowles is like, she's in her 70s now, right? So at the time you can think, oh, okay, I can see how maybe when you were growing up there was still racism. And then they make reference to Beyonce's day when she was growing up. You think, oh, in the 90s, 2000s, and then you go to today and you think, it just never ends. It's continuous. We are constantly fighting, constantly striving. And that comes up again and again. And I think it doesn't matter what level of success you reach, how much money you amass, and how many times you've proven them wrong again and again, but yet they continue to constantly want you to prove yourself. And that happens in every facet of life. So this helps to really, really humanize them. And I absolutely love it. I cannot recommend the book enough. You also get to know all about the wonderful, infamous famous Uncle Johnny, and where he comes from and his story. There's so much in this book. It is so rich. And if you want to understand, let me tell you a key takeaway that I took from this book. And I was like, oh, I get that if you do not heal past generational traumas, they leak onto your kids again and again. Part of me was thinking, God, I can't help but wonder, because I feel like listening to this book, I have an amazing understanding of who Beyonce is through her mum. So what would I rate this book? I would rate this book a definite strong 9 out of 10. It's a slow burn. Like I said, you start listening to it and you think, oh God, I don't know, to know all the way back to your childhood. But once you get into it, there are so many life lessons that you learn. And, you know, like one thing that we've seen on the internet again and again is all people say, oh, you know, there are the Illuminati and the this and the that and all, it's spooky. I don't know about any of that. But here's what I do know. I think it's easy to want to vilify people because it's easier than actually explaining or understanding actually these people have worked their butts off to be where they are. And when you listen to the audiobook, you definitely walk away feeling like they deserve every single ounce of success that they have acquired. That's it. So I would rate the book a 9 out of 10. Go out and look at it. It's Tina Knowles' Matriarch. And if you have read it, let me know in the comments what you think, what your take is. What did you take away from the book? What do you think about Solange? What do you think about Beyoncé? What do you think about Mr. Knowles? And what I would really, oh God, I would love to be a fly on the wall when each of them read it and what their thoughts were, because the book is so brutally honest. And if you want the tea, get it from the horse's mouth. Go get the book. Very, very good. Okay, thanks all. Bye.